So we've been talking about this story the entire time. We've made videos over what's been going on in Seattle and the plan and the disagreements and the ice time and everything when it comes to recent Kraken 4th overall pick Shane Wright. And it appears that the ultimate plan has finally started to take place. And it makes a lot more sense now why Shane, his family, and all the people involved here seem to be sort of on the same page despite the very obvious lack of actual minutes, you know? The coach will say, oh, we need to play him 10-12 minutes a night, and then he goes out there and he plays 5 minutes a night. Shane Wright's grandparents or his family, they come and visit the Seattle Kraken at home for a homestand for a week, and Wright doesn't play a single game. Out of all this stuff, it felt like, just based off of the interviews and the quotes that we had seen from Wright and the people involved, that they were always kind of on the same page. But at the end of the day, even though they all said they were on the same side, it didn't really look like that. And now yesterday, we had ourselves the news that Shane Wright has been loaned to the AHL's Coachella Valley Firebirds for a conditioning stint. Now, I know what you're thinking. Wait a minute. Shane Wright is first-year NHL eligible. He's from the OHL. Why is he going to the AHL? I thought that was not allowed. And it turns out, it actually is allowed, under the specific circumstances that in which Shane Wright has indeed fulfilled. Here's what Jeff Marek said in the intermission 2 days ago, that Shane Wright has now been healthy scratched for 5 games in a row, which makes him eligible for a 2-week conditioning stint in the AHL. This appears to have been the plan, and now he'll be able to stay in the AHL for 14 days before being forced to get called back up. Now, I get it is kind of weird that this appears to have been the plan. Shane Wright is going to sit for 5 games so he could get the opportunity to play 2 weeks in the AHL before forcing himself to come back up to the NHL, where we'll see what happens then. But at the same time, you know, it does feel a little unnecessary. Like, why could you have just not played Wright for whatever amount of minutes that he could have deserved with the regular team? I know the Kraken have been winning games this season, which is great, but at the same time, you know, Shane Wright getting played 5-6 minutes a night isn't really appropriate for the caliber of talent that he is. And it's not even like, oh, you play him more because he's a top pick and he deserves the minutes. No. It's just Shane Wright, watching the Seattle Kraken, he actually was pretty good. Like, he was not a player that was playing poorly enough to deserve 5 to 6 minutes a night. He was a guy that you honestly could have said, yeah, no, he's their second power play right wing with the right-handed shot, and he's on the strong side. I would believe that. If you told me that Shane Wright, in the limited sample in the NHL so far, was good enough to be that type of a guy, I would say, yeah, no, that makes sense. Even in the preseason, Shane Wright, he looked different than everybody else out there with the amount of confidence and swagger that he had to pull off some of those fancy moves against the Vancouver Canucks. Shane Wright is a talented player. So just having him go through this entire process, it does feel a little bit strange, but at the same time, you know, we had the news, his family, him, they're all kind of agreeing that this is what needs to happen, or that the Kraken are doing what they can and they have a path. It just appears now that that plan happened to include the Coachella Valley Firebirds in the AHL. So, we're going to see what Shane Wright does down there. I would be pretty surprised if Shane does not have a pretty good level of success, to be honest. Like, I get it, he had 1 point in 7 NHL games, which isn't great. He definitely is playing a lot better than that 1 point says if you go out there and watch any Kraken games. But in Coachella, he's going to be, hopefully, one of the top guys. We always kind of knew that sending him down to the OHL and going back to Kingston would be a pretty big problem because we always kind of knew that he wouldn't really learn anything there. In fact, this is a common thread on the subreddit on our hockey that I do think adds another layer to this entire story as well. Man Without Country says, I understand why they had to go through all these steps to make the situation work, but I hope for Seattle's sake that Wright was fully aware and on board with this plan well in advance. B. Tim C. says, yeah, he has been. Him and his family have both said they have been in the loop and are good with the plan. Shane is the hardest working guy at practice. He usually stays late with the staff, and he skates till he drops. Most of the drama in the situation is being spun by Montreal and Toronto media. AVMP629 then says, if anything, it sounds like Shane or Seattle both don't want him going back to Kingston, so they're sheltering him until January 1st when he can be traded in the CHL before sending him back. Does anyone know why? X-Diagnosis has our answer here. I'm sure it's irrelevant in the long run, but last year Kingston put a lot of responsibility and Wright to play a defensive two-way game to make up for team deficiencies. Considering his game is well-rounded as it is, it would be really good for Shane to improve on his dynamic offensive skills that will help him elevate from a reliable third-line center to a dominant top-six center at the NHL level. He might be better off being on a wagon elsewhere than an okay Kingston team that lives and dies based on Wright's play. The Ottawa 67s, who are 18-1 and utterly unstoppable, would be an absolute force if they were able to acquire Wright, and he would be able to shine there. This might happen to play into why Shane Wright's last season in Kingston was also seen as somewhat of a disappointment. Sure, the guy had 90 points in 60 games, which is great, but at the same time, this was not the year that people thought he was capable of achieving. Hey, Wright was supposed to be in that same territory as guys like Lafreniere and Matthews. He was supposed to be better than Owen Power and everything, so what gives? 94 points in 60 games? Sure, it's not bad, but it's not in that level, you know? And so, with Kingston being the team that they are, not really the best and kind of super reliant on Shane Wright, it would make sense if the Kraken decided to hold on to Wright for a little bit, not play him his full 9 games, play him for 7, then sit him out for 5 games, play him in 2 weeks in the AHL, which takes us into, let's say, the first week of December. And then call him back up, maybe sit him out for a few more games, and then once he gets into the January 1st period of 2023, force the Kingston Frontenacs to make a trade. They'll make a trade, they'll get some picks, Wright will go to another team in the OHL, and then they'll send him back. It's kind of a 3D chess type of move, but at the same time, I respect the hustle. And now that we actually see this plan come into fruition, it makes a little bit more sense now why they just didn't decide to play him. It's the entire time I totally understood that Shane Wright playing in Kingston wouldn't necessarily teach him much, but at the same time, the alternative of having him sit out and being scratched this entire time didn't seem like a proper alternative at all. But now, he's able to go to the AHL because of it. And if they hold this out and stall for long enough, he could just go back to the OHL before that first year ELC is able to fix itself and slide it to next year. This actually seems like a pretty genius plan, if you ask me. All you have to do now is wait for Shane Wright to hopefully just come back to the NHL at the start of December and be okay with sitting out another few weeks before the OHL team is able to trade him away. His last game played at the NHL level was on November 5th against the Pittsburgh Penguins, so it's already been 16 days, so that's 2 weeks. What's another 2 weeks in the grand scheme of things? He's practicing, he's interviewed by media, he's getting used to the NHL pace and everything, so maybe this is the ultimate plan. And maybe we were all fools to doubt that they had a plan in the first place. Okay, no, I disagree with that. I feel like for fans and media, there's a right that people have to question what's going on, and the fact that they didn't really tell us, that's their prerogative, for sure. They can do whatever they want. But at the same time, it appears they did have a plan. So, there you go. That's it. Shane Wright is going to the AHL in a clause that allows him to do so in a very peculiar circumstance that in which the Kraken did fulfill, and now it seems like a waiting game for him to be able to play some games in the American Hockey League, come back to the NHL, maybe sit a little bit more, and then go back to the OHL without burning off that first year of the ELC. Talk to the comments your thoughts about Shane Wright and this very interesting contract plan. Do you think it's a good one? Would you rather have just played Wright in the first place, the minutes he deserved at the NHL level? Do you care about the first year of the entry-level contract sliding down or not? Because this is a caliber of talent that should have been a first-line potential center. I still do think that Wright at his best can be a 90, 100-point player, so I'm kind of optimistic on him and his future, but either way, let me know in the comments all your thoughts. I hope you enjoyed this Juraj 99, and bye.